All right, everyone, welcome back into another Prize Picks and Underdog video. Going to be touching on the top prop bets that we have available in NBA today. But first, as always, let's go and get into a quick recap of yesterday. Now, yesterday was a good day in the sense that we were able to gain some massive edges. The unfortunate side of it is that those edges didn't end up mattering. All in all, I mean, not kind of surprising. Mentioned that coming off of a hot stretch, kind of due to have some sort of data regression. I think that's what we saw happen. I mean, this one got bumped down to 24.5, so we gained a 1-point edge there. Chris Middleton ended up getting to 22 there. And then this was a prop bet from the night before where I was doing like a preview video, gained some really big edges here. I think Jalen Brunson got up to 40.5 on the day. I don't know if it got higher than that, but I know it got to 40.5, so 1.5 point edge there fantasy score wise. And then Devin Booker as well, that got up to 47.5 and actually got up so high to the point where the under was actually one of the better bets on the day. And that just goes to show you guys, like, it really depends on when you are making bets a lot of the time as to whether or not it's a good bet or not, because lines are going to be changing throughout the day. That can be the source of a good day or a bad day. Now, all in all, as long as we're gaining these edges each and every day, and again, making the correct decisions, we're going to have a profitable week, month, and year. It's very much the long-term solution. We saw that with having a good week all of last week, pretty much except for Friday. Now, that being said, I was able to cash 6 prop bets yesterday, thankfully. And as you guys kind of know my strategy, I'm just all about taking that free money that they're tossing to us on Taco Tuesday. Now, looking at today's slate, we have 11 games. And looking at the first game, it's going to be the Sixers versus the Wizards, 10-point spread. So there is the potential for some blowout. It is a 240. Almost 241 for the over and under. Actually, no, sorry, 240. The biggest piece of injury news that we have for this game is the fact that Kelly Oubre is expected to be back in this game. And then looking at the Wizards, they are kind of a little bit banged up. Jordan Poole, game time decision. DeLon Wright is also out. And then Johnny Davis, another kind of point guard type player, also a game time decision. So if some of those players sit, I mean, Tyus Jones is going to have a higher usage rate and probably Kyle Kuzma. And so really with the Sixers, I think we're going to see that they are mostly going to be stayaways in this game, even though it is going to be a pace up spot, even though this is typically going to be a spot that we would want to attack. With Kelly Oubre back, I really don't know what to expect from this squad. I mean, maybe Maxey gets a couple more assists in this game, but really that's it. And interestingly enough, we see Joel Embiid for about a 53% likelihood to get over 49.5 for points, rebounds, and assists. We can see that is a decent prop bet there on Underdog, where it's only being valued at 49. You are seemingly going to get a pretty good edge there. Another one that's kind of interesting to me is looking at this one for D'Anthony Melton. 17.5 for his points and rebounds. Underdog has it set at 16.5. So chances are the line probably should be set at 17. I don't really see an edge there, but I did find that interesting. Same thing with Tobias Harris for points and assists as well. We are seemingly getting a small edge there as well. Now, I did mention that, okay, so this is something I don't mind. Maxey for over 6.5 assists. We have seen that Underdog has already bumped this to 7. And I think that's just rooted in the fact that with Kelly Oubre back, you're just adding another shooter. You know, you're taking out Batum for Kelly Oubre. Obviously, that's going to be an upgrade for the offense, and that should mean better things for Maxey in terms of assists. And all the data is pretty much telling us that it's going to be a close one, but all in all, that's probably why we are getting a 53% likelihood for that one to hit for Maxey. Take a peek at Washington then. Washington, yeah, it's all a little bit too tight here. Taking a peek at the, projected starting lineups and whatnot, it is truly up in the air in terms of who's going to play and who's going to start. So all in all, on a big slate like this, I don't feel the need to touch on this game too much. So let's go ahead and move on into the next game. The next game, we have the Pistons versus the Grizzlies, a 2-point spread, only 219 for an over and under, but all in all, I think we might be getting some good props in this game. Do need to get news on Marvin Bagley. If he's going to sit, I think they'll just shift the minutes to James Wiseman. I don't think that's going to change the minutes for Jalen Duren or Isaiah Stewart. I do think it's worth mentioning that Bogdanovic is back for Detroit. He ended up playing 27 minutes in their last game, had a really good game as well. So that's going to be a player that's going to soak up some usage. Heck, he was, I don't want to say basically, he was their best player last year until he got injured in terms of fantasy production, in terms of consistency in fantasy production. So he came in and instantly played 27 minutes. He is someone that I'm hoping we're getting some props on, because I don't know if the data will have caught up to him prop betting wise. So let's go and take a peek at that. And it doesn't appear that we are getting props on him just yet. Again, guys, I don't know if he's going to be properly valued. And so if we get some props on him, I don't mind it. Looking at the data that we are getting, we are seeing Hayes for under points at 9.5. I'm actually curious. Now, it's only going to be a 1-game sample size. How much did his role change? No, he still played 33 minutes in the last game, had 13 points, 6 for 11. You don't really count on that. But obviously, Bogdanovic is back, putting up shot attempts. That's going to take away from somebody. I mean, 15 shot attempts, that's a lot. 3 3 for 10 from 3. That is a lot. Jaden Ivey still saw 29 minutes. And we have seen Thompson's minutes kind of get reduced a little bit here. I would assume that's part of the reason as to why. But also he has been someone getting into foul trouble a lot recently. Well, and we take a peek at their projected starting lineup. He is not in it. And this is a fascinating starting lineup, right? Fascinating. Kate Cunningham, small forward. Interesting there. So right now, I don't see that many good props for Detroit. We'll take a peek at Memphis. Memphis, they are pretty banged up as well still. Luke Kennard, Marcus Smart being out. I think we're going to continue to see Desmond Bane have a high usage rate because of that. And so looking at it right now, the best prop that we are getting is actually Jaren Jackson for over 6.5 rebounds. That's a good EV bet. And right away, guys, if that is still available by the end of this video or by the time you guys are watching it, by all means, go for it. That should be a very good prop bet for us. From there, though, I'm not sure I'm seeing that much that I would want to go in on too much. Biombo, we can see Underdog has us at 7. That's kind of interesting to me for rebounds. He should still be getting minutes, especially against Detroit, who does run out a lot of bigs. Like if Bagley is active in this game, and he was likely to play, Bismack Biyombo should be getting, a decent amount of run in this game. And he had been someone that really prior to the last 2 games had been getting around 30 or so minutes, but maybe that just means Jaren Jackson is just more likely to be on the court, more likely to get, those minutes. And I probably would say that's the best route there. Now, Tillman is back. I do think that's worth calling out. He's played the last 2 games, 12 and 22 minutes. That was the back end of a back-to-back. I don't think we're too concerned about that. He is someone that could get an increase in minutes because of that. So it does make sense why there is some discrepancies there for Bismack Biyombo. We're going to move on to the next game. We got the Magic versus the Cavs, a 4-point spread. Looking at the over and under for that, it is a 223.5 for the over and under. Pulling up the injury reports, looking at it, LeVert is going to be out in this game. And then looking at the Magic, the biggest piece of injury news that we need is going to be Jonathan Isaac. He is someone that is kind of a point per minute producer. And if he is out, and he is currently a game time decision, if he is out, that's going to lead to Goga just getting a little bit more minute. And you guys will see here, that is going to be one of the better prop bets. It's going to be Goga for over 20.5 for a fantasy score. The projection data only has it set at 20, but the average sportsbook line would have it set at 22.1, and they'd still slightly be favoring the over at 22.1. And given the matchup that we have with Cleveland, a team that does run out 2 bigs as well, he should be getting those minutes. My huge concern is that he only played 15 minutes in the last game, and really his minutes have been very sporadic recently. And that's where, if Jonathan Isaac is out in this game, I do think that's going to mean good things for Goga in terms of minutes. And all in all, that's really what this bet is. This is a bet on him getting 20 plus minutes in this game. It might be a little bit too risky for some of you. We do see that Wagner for over fantasy score is also a decent one. Probably the right line, but this one has about a 53% chance to hit. He has been someone that has been playing pretty well. All in all, not exactly what I want to be going out of my way to tack. That's going to be the same for all the Magic props. So it's going again to the other side of this game. So another pretty good odds bet that we have is actually these two, Jared Allen under fantasy score, and then also looking at Donovan Mitchell for over his fantasy score. Let's take a peek at both of those. So Mitchell is someone that lately has been a little bit hit or miss there, but all in all, this would suggest, maybe coming on off of not as great of a day, that he should have like a spike game, or kind of get back to his mean. In that game against Detroit, every kind of data point of his was down: points, rebounds, and assists. So that's all something that more times than not, he's going to have a bounce back game. So I don't disagree with that. I think it's a fine bet. And we are looking at Jared Allen as well. He is someone that I don't love betting against him, simply because it's kind of guessing between Evan Mobley or Jared Allen having a good game. And right now with his minutes not exactly being completely limited anymore, tough to really want to be on him or off of him. So all in all, the data really likes this. And I'm perfectly fine using that. Does worry me. We are seeing Darius Garland for over 6.5 assists, has about almost a 54% chance to hit. That's a pretty solid one as well. Perfectly fine with that one. So let's go ahead and move on to the next game. We got Miami versus the Raptors, 3.5 for the spread. Looking at the over and under, about a 219.5 for the over and under. Pulling up the injury report here. Tyler Hero still out. Highsmith out. Bam out. So obviously the Heat have a lot of players out. Looking at the Raptors, nothing too consequential in terms of who's out. So with that Miami situation, we should be hopefully getting some edges there. Let's just go ahead and go through the production with Bam, Highsmith, and Tyler Hero off the court. And so with those 3 players off the court, it's actually Jaime Jaquez that gets the most minutes, then Josh Richardson, then Jimmy Butler. So kind of interesting there. And if we just look at kind of the minutes for the last few games for Miami, Bam out, and then Highsmith basically not playing the last 3 games, we got kind of get a good indication of what's going to happen. Jimmy Butler going to play heavy minutes. That makes sense. Jaime Jaquez, yeah, again, that makes sense. Josh Richardson, we'll have to see. I mean, I would imagine he'd still be getting those minutes. minutes. And so we do see kind of a high concentration really in the minutes. Kevin Love might get a bump. Robinson might get a bump. And what's shocking is that they didn't turn to Thomas Bryant. But yes, it would appear that Hawkes is going to be locked in minutes. As you guys know, if you guys have been following this channel, I was hyping him up a bunch, kind of begging for PrizePicks to give us some props on that. They did, and then we kind of end up cashing a lot on that. So I don't know if we're going to get more props on him or not. We'll see. But Hawkes is someone that per 36 with those 3 players off the court averages about 23.6 points. So a massive bump there. 5.2 rebounds, not that big of a bump, but still good enough. 3.7 assists, averages 15 shot attempts. That's 4 more. Then has a usage rate of 23%. That's going to be second on the team with those 3 players off the court. Jimmy Butler's going to be number 1. Averages 36 fantasy points per 36. Again, he is going to be the player that we want to be going in on props-wise. And I know PrizePicks didn't have it. I was trying to see if Underdog had Jaime Jaquez props yet. They don't as well. So looking at it, let's just concentrate on this a little bit. And really, Jimmy Butler, what is our expectation for Jimmy Butler? So Jimmy Butler, we saw the last 2 games has gone 37 and 38 minutes, so slightly over 36. So I'm reading off this per 36 production. Maybe has the potential to be a little bit higher. But with those 3 players off the court, averages 31.3 points per 36. So already, if you're doing points, rebounds, and assists, that's a pretty hefty amount of points. Averages 6.9 rebounds. So already at the over. You tack on 7 assists. He's crushing this over. So it has a 33% usage rate, averages 51 fantasy points per 36. And so he is someone that, yeah, if we look at the last couple of games, has really been crushing. I mean, got to the free throw line a ton. We don't expect that to happen against the Pacers. And that truly was a pace-up spot. And I think that's worth calling out. Like, the sample size that I'm looking at, guys, this is 38 and 37 minutes. That's almost 80 minutes going into the sample size. And that's like half of the minutes that are going into the sample that I'm looking at here. So all in all, probably not a true indication of how productive he's going to be scoring. But all in all, I would still say the lines that we're getting on him are probably a little bit too low. And this isn't exactly a stay away spot. From there, I don't know if I really want to touch any of these other ones. It does seem to be a guessing game. Again, I think Hawkes over, if his props are even close to his averages, I like the over. Then we go on and get into Toronto. Not that many props that I really like for Toronto. Now, bigs wise, they should get a little bit of a better matchup. Malcolm Pirtle has casually been getting more minutes now recently. As long as the game stays close, maybe he's someone you can look at for potentially fantasy score because he's a guy that can get multiple blocks and stuff. But all in all, the props that we're getting right now seem to be a little bit too thin. So we get into the next game. We have the Spurs versus the Timberwolves, guys. A 12-point spread in favor of the Timberwolves playing. I don't know. That to me suggests that we're probably going to see Ant-Man play. We will see. It is a 229 for the over and under. Looking at the injuries, yeah, Ant-Man, a game time decision right now. And then looking at the Spurs, Zach Collins and Devin Vassell, currently game time decisions. Well, I do want to take a peek at the projected starting lineup. Okay, so the 2 Spurs are more likely to play. Anthony Edwards currently in the projected starting lineup, but if he sits, that's going to open up 2 great spots for Towns and Gobert. And when I had looked this morning, they weren't really properly valuing Gobert or Towns, I thought, for points and rebounds. And so this is a spot where, we have seen if Ant-Man's out, this is a big edge that we are gaining by betting the over on Towns and really for Rudy Gobert. Both of them should be able to crush. And honestly, I find it strange that we are getting some props on Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert and even Mike Conley as well, simply because this game is a blowout. And I would say because of that, Ant-Man's probably, if he is truly a game time decision, I think the likelihood of him sitting is a little bit more increased in this game because of that. And we could be getting a massive edge if he sits. And even if he plays, obviously it's not going to be as big of an advantage for those props, but if he sits, that's a huge edge that we are gaining. And so in NBA, you sometimes have to do this to gain an edge. And I think this is a spot where we can gain an edge by simply betting on some of the overs for really Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert. And so I went ahead and refreshed the data because I saw we had some fantasy score props in there. And yeah, right now we can already see Gobert for over fantasy score could be a decent one. Now, the average sportsbook line would have set at 35.2, which is less than his PrizePicks line, but they are favoring the over at about 54% for that. And again, if we get news that Edwards is sitting, we know that Gobert and Towns get a big bump. Looking at Gobert, guys, he averages 40.9 fantasy points per 36 with him off the court. Now, can we bank on him getting that many minutes? Probably not, but this is a great matchup going against the Spurs. His per 36 points is 16. His rebounds is 14. We know he's a guy that can get a couple blocks as well. That should really bode well for him. And so when we look at this game log, it's no surprise that he's been dominating. I am perfectly fine trying to gain an edge here, knowing that all in all, could backfire. Don't get me wrong. We are seeing Mike Conley for over fantasy score as well. He is not someone that really gets a big bump with Ant-Man off the court. Actually, his points go down, his usage goes down, and his fantasy points per 36 goes down as well. But all in all, with all the data telling us that this is a good overbet, I'm fine taking it. We are going to see Alexander Walker is also one that's not exactly popping up too much, which is shocking to me because he's someone that had a massive game with Ant-Man off the court in one of the games, and the other one really kind of struggled. So yes, it's kind of twofold, a little bit risk reward there. Good matchup going against the Spurs though. But what I really want to see is Towns. Where is Towns at for fantasy score? Okay, so basically a 50-50. I am fine with that. His usage rate with Ant-Man off the court, 37%, guys. 37%. That is massive. That's unheard of. Averages 50 fantasy points per 36 with him off the court. 32 real life points, 9 rebounds, 2.8 assists, averages a block and a steal. Does average almost 4 turnovers though, so that could hurt this. But if you want to do points, rebounds, and assists for him, you could as well. Again, we are seemingly getting some pretty big edges. And for what it's worth, guys, here's an example of kind of what you could do, what I did, while filming this video. I think this is a decent prop edge that we could be gaining, taking the EV bet that we have and then trying to bank on potentially Edwards sitting. And then all in all, if he plays, obviously we wouldn't be making those prop bets, but like they could still get there, just drastically decreases the likelihood, but still not terrible. Looking at the prop bets that we're getting on the other side of it, we're seeing Sohan for under fantasy score, an okay one, Keldon Johnson for under fantasy score as well. I don't hate those. I don't love those as well. I would say if we are betting on those two to get the under, and I'm not saying those are bad ideas, maybe we look at Wemby for over his fantasy score. Like Keldon Johnson, very much scoring dependent, but this is going to be a pretty difficult matchup, and so I could see why the under would be favored here. And then looking at Sohan, yeah, he has been all over the place. Okay, I don't know if I want to... I probably would be fine with this. Maybe a game stack. Maybe those 3 Minnesota players over fantasy score. Jeremy Sohan under, Keldon Johnson under. A decent 5 slip bet there. But we move on into the next game. We got the Nets and Hawks. This is going to be a spot I think a lot of people are going to chase, and I think it's going to be the correct decision to do that. It's a very high scoring game. Very good pace up spot for the Nets. 243 the over and under. Looking at the spread, 3.5 point spread. Seemingly a game that we want to stack. We are going to see that Lonnie Walker is out, and then also Ben Simmons still out. Looking at the Hawks, we still have Jalen Johnson out. And one player's props that I want to call is going to be Cam Thomas's, guys. Like, this to me is a free square. And I shouldn't say, I hate saying that, but it should be a pretty big edge on it. Like this is one that I probably should start the video with. I like hammered home some of the prop bets for him. I'm actually curious if they have bumped up or not. So like, here's a slip that I have out there already. Points, rebounds, and assists started at 23. That was one that I made this morning. I'm actually curious, has that been bumped up? And it might have just been sticker shock. Okay, wow, 24. It's already been bumped up too. So we'll see. Maybe we're looking at another prop, but even still, that might be too low, guys. And that's just rooted in the fact that awesome game, high scoring game, close game. He averages 26 points on the season, and you tack on maybe a couple of rebounds, a couple of assists. That is awesome. Now we're probably not going to go fantasy score for him. Can be, can get some turnovers, not really getting any steals or blocks. To me, probably the prop that we want to go in on him the most is going to be point. We are seeing Mikal Bridges, maybe a little bit of correlation there with him. Mikal Bridges over assists with Cam Thomas. So the fantasy score is not being favored. That is super fascinating to me. And if we take a peek at his projected minutes at 29 or so, that to me should mean that he is going to be well on his way to getting the over there. I mean, 29 minutes is still enough. And all in all, that's probably like too low. Like his first game back from injury, played 25 minutes, crushed. Against Orlando, also crushed. Played 38 minutes in that game. Shot the basketball a lot. I mean, he's shooting the basketball 20 times. Even if he goes 50%, he should be able to get this over. This to me is crazy. And so whether it's points, rebounds, and assists where we are still getting an edge or fantasy score, I'm kind of okay with it. Then we are seeing Mikal Bridges for over 35 for points, rebounds, and assists is another good one we could be on. We're going to see Spencer Dinwiddie for over fantasy score is another decent one we can be on. And to me, that's kind of a way of looking at it. Like this game could be a very good game to stack. Like we know Mikal Bridges is going to get those minutes, and if it is going to be a higher scoring game, he is someone that we would expect to step up. Now again, Cam Thomas, we saw he really ate into the usage for Spencer Dinwiddie and also Mikal Bridges at the start of the season. Maybe that's not happening right now. I will say Dinwiddie a little bit too hit or miss to fully trust, but all in all, not a terrible prop as well. I don't know if we'd want to do fantasy score or points, rebounds, and assists. To me, Cam Thomas, Mikal Bridges, those are the two better ones. And I will say Nick Claxton, I like for the over fantasy score, assuming that he gets 30 minutes, because if he does, the point should be there, the rebounds should be there, and he should be able to get a block or two, which should offset whatever turnovers he gets. And so, yeah, I think we just have a tremendous stack and opportunity with really all those props. You could honestly just do Cam Thomas over points, rebounds, and assists, Mikal Bridges over points, rebounds, and assists, Spencer Dinwiddie over fantasy score, and then tack on those other Minnesota props as well. I do think Nick Claxton for over fantasy score is going to be one that I like as well. Now, for what it's worth, the data is saying it doesn't like that. I am disagreeing strongly with that. All in all, typically when we see this, I'd like to fade it. That is a concern, and you could just do points, rebounds, and assists because we are seemingly getting a pretty good edge there as well. So we have to try to run it back with someone. We are seeing DeJounte Murray for over fantasy score is a pretty good correlated prop bet there. DeAndre Hunter, I'm still staying away from it, guys. With Jalen Johnson off the court, it's either been him or Bey having really good games. I would rather bet on Hunter having a good game than betting against him having a bad game. Yeah, so I really just think you could run it back with DeJounte Murray there. I think that's a fine way to go about operating on that slate. And I mean, that's kind of it for the Hawks. I don't really want to touch Clint Capella. The minutes are not secure with him because Onyeka Okongwu is also getting some run. Again, like, I think if you're choosing between Bey or Hunter for over fantasy score, it seems to be a guessing game right now. The data is favoring Bey for over fantasy. Moving on into some of the later games, we got the Thunder versus the Rockets, a 2-point spread. Looking at the over and under, it is a 226.5. Taking a peek at the injury report here. Easton game time decision for him. If he's out, Jabari Smith going to get a little extra run. He'd become a little bit more appealing. That's really it. And prop wise, again, guys, I'm just not touching this Josh Giddey one. He just obviously has some stuff going on off the court. I get why Vegas and I get why the projection data is fair in the over. It's tough to really say whether or not that off court stuff is playing an issue or not. I don't think he can be trusted right now. I don't want to touch that, but again, it does make sense why the data would be favoring the overs here as compared to really anyone's natural kind of minds. That's really it that we are getting there. I don't mind Chet Holmgren for over fantasy score where he's at, but all in all, probably just to stay away there. Looking at Houston though, Sengun for over fantasy score, not much there. And I will say Jabari Smith for over fantasy score. Again, that'd be one I wouldn't mind if we get news that Easton is actually going to sit, just because we could lock in those minutes for Jabari Smith. But all in all, it does seem to be a little bit too thin for this game thus far. And we already have some good prop bets elsewhere. So let's go to move on into the next game. We got Charlotte versus the Bulls, 5-point spread, 224 the over and under. For this game, we know that LaMelo Ball is still going to be out for the Charlotte Hornets. Mark Williams, a game time decision. That is some big news because if he sits, PJ Washington going to step up into a bigger role. And then we do know that Zach LaVine is going to be out. Alex Caruso, a game time decision for the Bulls. And so the player that's really stepped up the most was Zach LaVine off the court in terms of like getting a big increase in production is Patrick Williams. I'm hoping that we're getting some good props on him. And Kobe White has been playing really well recently as well. And so looking at the props that we're getting right now, the actual best one is going to be Vucevic for over his 17 points. I don't know if I precisely agree with that. Again, we don't see a big increase in production for DeMar DeRozan or for Nikola Vucevic with Zach LaVine off the court, which is honestly shocking to me. Vuce does average like 2.3 more points, but overall his full like sample size doesn't really increase. Again, the player that gets the biggest bump is actually Patrick Williams in terms of minutes, in terms of production. Not really the case, but for Williams, if we can bank on him getting a little extra minutes in this game, like 30 minutes or so, then the line that we're getting for him for points and assists, like I'm fine with betting the over. You're basically betting on the points there. Kobe White is someone that has been playing better as of recent as well. He does average a lot more actual real life points with LaVine off the court, and lately has been playing extremely well. Like those minutes are heavy, and if those minutes continue to be heavy, he should be able to crush the line that we are getting on him. And so that's one that I really don't mind. Like points, he could get 20 points by himself. You look at his increase in production with LaVine off the court, it is about 7 points. So you add on 7 points, he's basically already has over 4 points and rebounds or points and assists, really whichever one you want to go with. To me, this is one of my favorite bets, I would say, on the day, especially like for a sportsbook where we can see the average sportsbook line is still favoring the over at 22. So that is seemingly a good edge. And now we go and take a peek at Charlotte. So yeah, looking at Charlotte, guys, it is going to be more difficult. I do need to take a peek at the projected starting lineup for them. Mark Williams is projected to start. Okay, that does help out a little bit. And so with LaMelo Ball off the court, we have really seen Terry Rozier dominate. Like he has been playing well. I shouldn't say dominate, but playing well. And like his per 36 production, he averages about 23.6 points with him off the court, 3.5 rebounds, and then 7.3 assists. So this might be a little bit thin, but all in all, he should be able to get this over. I mean, he averages a 39% usage rate, 29.6% usage rate and 40 fantasy points per 36. And so all in all, I do think maybe in a stacking opportunity, you could run something out with Terry Rozier, but we are seeing under or 2.5 threes made, so they don't expect him to really have a great game shooting. And then from there, it is kind of just a let's back off approach. Like Brandon Miller has seen an increased usage rate. Like I would say I actually like this over bet. I'm on the sports books a little bit better, where the under is being slightly favored. But all in all, and the rest of the prop bets are kind of stayaways. That's because PJ Washington been playing better. Miles Bridges, a little bit hit or miss right now. Same thing with Gordon Hayward. So I don't know if we exactly want to be going out of our way to trust anything there. Terry Rozier should be getting around 38 minutes, I would assume, if the game is close. So that is still my favorite bet. But let's go and move on into the next game here. Looking at the next game, Jazz versus Mavericks. Potential blowout, 11.5 point spread, 232 for the over and under. And we can see why. Markkanen, Olynyk, and Jordan Clarkson are going to be out. On the flip side of it, I don't really care about those injuries for Dallas. We know it's heavily concentrated in terms of production with Kyrie and Luka Doncic. Now with Olynyk off the court as well, I think the assumption is going to be that John Collins is going to be forced into a lot of minutes. And bigs against Dallas, that has been something we've been wanting to chase. So if John Collins is getting 35 minutes again, I love that. Now, the way he gets there is if this game stays close, so you'd have to do some sort of correlated bet with that. Walker Kessler not getting a real increase in his minutes. He's getting 25 to 28. And Omier is actually someone that's been getting around 25 minutes as well, especially with Kelly Olynyk out. I think we're going to continue to see that as well. But yeah, I just think John Collins is going to be forced into minutes. Fontecchio is someone that also going to be forced into minutes, 35 minutes, 34 minutes the last two games. That is something that I expect to continue as well. He is someone that I don't mind for like points, rebounds, and assists. Shot the ball 12 times last game, 3 for 12, terrible. But if he's going to continue to shoot, that many threes and that many shot attempts, probably like the over points, rebounds, and assists, because these right here, that's typically what he averages per 36 with those players off the court. So as long as he can get us a couple extra points, like points and assists, if you wanted to roll with that, like I'd be fine with points, rebounds, and assists. If you want to roll with that as well, I'd be fine with. I'm actually curious here. Yeah. Like I'm fine with, I like that bet actually. And so that's another one, probably better on one of the sports books, but there is definitely an edge there. Keontae George is someone that also should step up with Jordan Clarkson off the court. The minutes are going to be locked in. We know that. And 17 and 19 shot attempts, I mean, that is massive. And so we are seeing that the points and rebounds prop is one that, or the rebounds and assist prop is popping up the most at 9.5, projected at 10.5. Like I'm okay with that. I think for him, I'd rather just do points, rebounds, and assists. And like, so again, this is kind of the Portland rule where we seemingly know he's going to be productive if the game stays close. It's going to be John Collins, it's going to be Keontae George, and then it's going to be Fontecchio. And so I'm kind of fine running out a game stack with those three, betting on the over, betting on them keeping the game close enough for long enough. Obviously, that is why we begin the edge there, because Vegas doesn't expect this game to stay close. And so that's really what the bet is. On the flip side of it, let's see if we're getting good props for Dallas. I doubt it. And guys, I phrased it like that because yesterday I mentioned I thought the Bucks could blow out the Knicks, even though Vegas didn't think so. Like it is, NBA prop betting is a game in which really depends on game. And so looking at, Dallas probably a little bit too thin. So again, let's move on to the next game. We got two more left here. Nuggets versus Clippers, 1 point spread, 227.5 for the over and under. Looking at Jamal Murray, game time decision. Aaron Gordon, game time decision. If they are out, we're looking at MPJ to have a good game. Jokic doesn't really change at all. Looking at the Clippers side of it, Zubac is someone that like maybe fantasy score you're looking at, but again, he could get into foul trouble going against Jokic, but if he doesn't, he's going to get heavy minutes, obviously, going against Jokic. All in all, though, probably not that much here in terms of prop betting for the Clippers. Let's take a peek at Denver. I'm not sure we're going to get too much without having that news just yet. Again, MPJ is someone that should be able to crush if those two players are out. Right now, we are getting props for Aaron Gordon, so he's expected to play. All in all, the only like lines I would want to do is like betting on the game staying close. Jokic over points, rebounds, and assists. Aaron Gordon over points, rebounds, and assists. And MPJ over points, rebounds, and assists. But again, that's more of a game stacked. Now, the last game on the slate, we got the Trailblazers versus the Warriors. A 13-point spread, 226 for the over and under. Looking at the injury report for these two teams, Aiden is a game time decision. Grant is out. Simon's game time decision. So very ugly there. And it's like, who's going to get the minutes? I mean, Malcolm Brogdon should get minutes. That's pretty clear. Walker should get some minutes for Portland. Sharp is someone that's going to get heavy minutes like he always does. So we'll see. Chris Paul game time decision. Andrew Wiggins game time decision. But yeah, guys, right now we're just not getting Portland props because of kind of their injury situations. And it makes sense. Like Malcolm Brogdon should have a good game, but all in all, probably a little bit too thin. So we'll take a quick peek at Underdog, and that'll give you guys the bet of the day for PrizePicks. Well, I do want to show you guys some other prop bets on other sports as well. Looking at it, we are seeing Mikal Bridges, Cam Thomas over points, rebounds, and assists, two of the better prop bets. Again, I'm perfectly fine with that. But yeah, let's take a peek at NHL for PrizePicks. And so right now, I really don't mind these first two. Okay. EV wise, again, we typically want this to be over 54% likely to hit. I'm okay with these ones being at like 53-ish% at 2.5, given the fact that the projection data really likes the over here. 3.6 projected shots on goal here, and then 4 shots on goal here. I am perfectly fine betting the over there. I think those are going to be 2 strong bets for us on this slate. And guys, looking at college basketball, we are getting a lot of kind of big edges here, it seems like. So we already have one for over rebounds. That one has about a 53% chance to hit. That is going to be a fantastic EV bet. That's going to be one that included in bet slip. Garcia for over fantasy score. We can see both the projection data and also the average sportsbook line data would be favoring about 38 for the fantasy score. So we are seemingly getting a good edge there. This is one that probably will be bumped, I'm assuming, but all in all, this is typically why I like giving you guys fantasy score props, because most of the time they actually don't adjust throughout the day, which is nice. From there, another one for under fantasy score for the same reasons, being that compared to the average sportsbook line projection data, this line seems to be a little bit too aggressive. We're seeing a good EV bet for rebounds. So we are seemingly getting some nice props. Bruce Thornton for over his fantasy score here, another decent one, but that's kind of the drop off. So we are getting some like pretty good EV bets college basketball wise. All right, guys, so 2 different bet slips of the day for today. One mixing in the different sports that we have. Obviously, this is college basketball and also NHL included. Again, this one is one that at 2.5 has already a 53 like 0.7% chance to hit. Tack on the fact that the projection data really likes the over as well, giving him 4 shots on goal. I like that one. Then we're seeing this was one that actually popped in as a 54% likely to hit as well. Seemingly a good prop bet there. Jaren Jackson Jr., one of the better EV bets that we got during the video for over rebounds. And then the 2 college basketball props. This one has, a really high likelihood, great EV bet. And then Dawson Garcia, very good fantasy score prop bet as well. And then Jimmy Butler, with Bam off the court and Tyler Hero off the court, he's going to have a high usage rate, and it's just don't go cold. And it's a weird way, like you could almost script this as well, like to the point where you're basically betting every other Miami Heat for the over and Jimmy Butler for the under. Like you could game script it like that, but all in all, I think the best bet is for Jimmy Butler to go over. Again, that's a pretty good EV bet that we are getting as well. I do want to show you guys another one. Now, I mentioned so many prop bets that I like. By all means, I hope you guys were writing that down. I paused and show you guys some like decent game stacks as well. But these are going to be the current best bets on the board right now, NBA wise, just pure NBA wise. So we can stack Brooklyn. If you guys don't want to use Brooklyn, I kind of get it, but game stack them there. If you guys want to run it back with someone, you could. Jaren Jackson again for over rebounds. That's the best EV bet that we have. And then these 2 over fantasy score as well. I'm fine with that. Remember, with the Timberwolves, I'm fine putting out Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert, Karl-Anthony Towns for over their fantasy score, hoping that Ant-Man sits. Even if he doesn't, they could still get there in a good matchup going against the Spurs. Sengun, I was actually surprised that one's popping up, but one of the better prop bets on the day. And then for what it's worth, guys, Nick Claxton, under fantasy score is one that's popping up. I'm not touching that, just as an FYI. But that's going to be all for this video. Make sure to give a like and subscribe. A very awesome video I thought today, so appreciate the like, guys. If you guys want access to the 905sports.com PrizePicks and Underdog cheat sheet, is available for just $10 a month. Head over to 905sports.com to get access to that. Thanks for watching. As always, let's keep cashing.